Begin in one, two, and three. Hi everyone, I'm Rick Zanotti and you're watching eLearnChat. Now today we're doing a show that everyone here and probably everyone in the chat room and everyone viewing doesn't really want to do. And that is a tribute to Terrence Wing, who is our co-host, our wingman, who unfortunately is not here with us today. He passed away last Thursday, December 1st, sometime in the afternoon. And I gathered with us today some good friends, not only people I really care about, but also people that Terrence loved. And we all had a bond with Terrence. With me, over me in the picture you're seeing right now is Trish Yule. Most of you know Trish from one way or another. She makes herself known. And we call her the center of our internet universe. I think she introduced almost all of us together in one way or another. And to my, I guess, left, or to my screen right, is Jean Franzblau. Hi, Jean.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Jean was a very good friend of Terrence's, and Terrence introduced me to Jean. Trish introduced me to Terrence, and the string continues. Terrence was one of those guys who not only enabled, but he made sure that the people he enabled got to know each other, and that was one of the sweet things about Terrence. And if he liked someone, or if he thought somebody had something to offer someone else, he was there. He was one of those kind of guys, and that's I think what we all appreciate from Terrence. And Trish, how did you meet Terrence?
Oh, that's a pretty funny story. That's a very funny story. I was actually at the ASTD International Conference in Washington, D.C., and I was on the Planning Advisory Committee. So I had all my conference flair on my name tag, on my name badge. And actually another friend of mine and colleague and I don't know what we were thinking. We were trying to sneak off and find a quiet lunch table to continue a conversation that we were having. So we went to the emptiest table that we could find in the expo hall at the tail end of lunch for the conference. And there were only a few people at this table, and they were on the way other side of this round table. And so Chris and I sat down to continue our conversation. And all of a sudden, this guy leapt up and just, engaged me in conversation. And it was of course, Terrence. And the very first thing that Terrence said to me, which was hilarious, because he noticed on my name badge that I was part of the Planning Advisory Committee, the very first thing, he didn't say hello, he didn't introduce himself, he didn't do any of that. He just jumped up and he said, there's not enough people on Twitter at this conference, and we need to fix that. And I was like, well, I agree with you, because I'm actually one of the few people who's been tweeting with you, Terrence Wing, for the past, 6 hours. And, what's amazing to me is that was back in, that was ICE 2009. And then that was how I got to know Terrence. And then, of course, Rick, at the end of the year is when I sent the email thinking that you and Terrence should hook up. And then Terrence and I served on the Planning Advisory Committee for ICE 2010 for the Chicago ICE, which was a privilege and a pleasure. And he sure did. I mean, Terrence was one of the instrumental people in getting the back channel chat going, not only for ASTD national events, but for chapter events as well. So. And that's my story.
And for those who knew him, he loved ASTD. That was one of his pleasures. He's been dragging me out to meetings and stuff, and I was a member a long time ago, and he keeps saying, "You need to join again. You need to join again. You need to join again." And actually, we are planning on joining probably in the next week or so. It's kind of like, okay, fine, all right, I'll finally join. And that was him. He loved that group, and he liked what it was doing and his role in it. Now, Jean, how did you meet Terrence? Because you guys did a lot of work together. And
We did.
You guys kind of both mentored each other in different things and just were good friends.
Yeah, we met through ASTD, not surprising. I feel like the Friday morning West Los Angeles meeting that we both attended regularly, he would kind of serve as the mayor in a way, always there, always with that bright smile. And always there early and introducing himself, making sure that everybody felt comfortable. And he took me under his Terrence wing. And what I didn't realize until I started seeing all of the posts in the past week about him is that he did that with so many people.
Hmm.
Like he made me feel like I was I was the one that he was mentoring. And I appreciate, Rick, that you said we mentored each other. We learned a lot in a project that we worked on, creating some e-learning together. Um, the thing about Terrence that cracks me up is that his vision is so big. It's like he's like the guy who at the buffet plate will put on so much, and the buffet plate is what he wants to accomplish in
Hmm.
the world of e-learning and social media. Um, he got a group of us together at ASTD, some folks who were less interested in technology, and he said, I'm going to put you in a room together. I'm going to teach you about Facebook, and I'm going to create Facebook pages for every single one of you and every single one of your businesses. And I'm like, Terrence, do you realize what you've just promised? And that's exactly how Terrence was, is he wanted to engage people and give them things and connect people. I feel like his mission was to make sure that none of us are left behind, that no learning professional is left behind. So I think the folks who are on right now, who are connected, this was certainly his community, and he was outreaching constantly to those who felt completely uncomfortable with all of this.
Yeah.
And what a gift that is.
Yeah.
Somebody made a comment on the ASTD Remembrance Place, how he would, perhaps get a smile of the fact that so many of us are connecting online the way we never have before in his honor and with love for him.
Well, it's funny. I was reading a tweet. Well, actually, I think it was a Google Plus message I got from Phil Cowsill, North Bay, Canada. Phil is a professor there. He's also a multimedia developer, a really nice person. And he said, I just found out. And he goes, I'm just, one, he was shocked like all of us. And two, he made a comment that was really telling. He said, I met Terrence at a couple of shows, and every single time I met him, I felt I was the only person he was talking to.
Exactly.
And that is so good. You meet a lot of salespeople at shows, and they're looking here, they're looking there, they're looking everywhere, and you feel you've got about 10% of the attention. With Terrence, not only did you have his full attention, he usually got a whole group to meet you too. So
Yeah.
it was a way to make people feel very included. And I think that was a gift that he had, bar none. And again, like everybody said, that smile. He had a smile that was just very contagious.
Yeah.
And when people got together, it was always a good meeting. It was always a lot of fun.
Well,
I
I
felt
have
like
a
I
quick
was his
thing.
special project.
It was his special project, and I think that we all think of Terrence and Terrence and technology, but I think it was Terrence's mission was all about leveraging the technology to be able to bring people together. I mean, that's really what social media is all about. But just really quickly, the quick scoop on how Terrence wound up on the International Planning Advisory Committee for ICE for 2 years was because he was on Twitter blasting ASTD for not being on Twitter enough, and he blasted ASTD CEO Tony Bingham. So Tony called him and invited him onto the Planning Advisory Committee.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, it was great.
And that
It
was
was
part of
great.
world domination. And by the way, the reason I'm bringing up world domination is Terrence, on his Twitter profile, had things about himself. Then he said, ultimate goal, world domination. So that came from him, actually. So he got pretty good domination in a whole mess of places. Anyway, we have one video that we got, and this is one from Julie Orloff. Now
Okay.
Gene knows Julie really well. Gene, Terrence, they just did a movie for Julie. I think it was called Pathway to Love, and it
Yeah.
was a really cute movie. I don't have the movie here to show, and it probably take too long, but it was a movie all about love and relationships and everything else. And Julie at one point had asked me if I had time to do it, and she caught me at like the worst time on earth. We were just really busy. Uh, Terrence, no matter how busy he was, says, I'll do it. And I remember he called me up afterwards and goes, that was an 11-hour shoot. And
Exactly.
I go, did you
And
have fun? He goes, yeah, it was great. So he really enjoyed it. And the video turned out really cute. And anyway, you guys should be able to hear. I won't be able to hear the video for some odd reason with Wirecast. When we play videos, I can't hear them. It doesn't loop back through us. And if I turn on the volume to loop it, it's just going to cause a lot of echo. So this is Julie Orloff. I believe she was a president of the ASCD LA chapter at one point,
yes, 2 years
2 years
ago.
ago. And
Yeah.
she was at a video seminar we did this year, which Terrence helped me on. And it was just a lot of fun. And then this video and the work he's done with her throughout the years kind of reflects in her message. So here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Orlov, and I wanted to send this off to Rick so that
Hey,
I
Rick.
could share with you
Yes.
my experiences and
I'm not
joy of
hearing the
having
bit- oh.
Terrence in my life.
Good.
First of all, I have to say Terrence would be extremely proud that I figured out how to create this video and get this off to Rick. So in memory of Terrence, I wanted to make him proud
turn off
and
the
do this
volume.
and
We're echoing.
let him know that he taught me well in terms of how to handle technology.
That was me, sorry.
You know, I knew Terrence originally because we were on the ASTD Los Angeles board together, and we were on the board together for a couple of years. Once when I was president-elect, and then when I was president. And his generosity and his intelligence and his enthusiasm was always appreciated. I don't know if you all know this, but Terrence also loves dogs, and my dog included. Everywhere he went, dogs went up to him because they just knew the kind of spirit and man that he was. And I have a lot of memories of him hanging out actually in my house with my dog at board meetings. And I would say, you know, my most precious memories of Terrence is when he really stepped up after I asked him to help me create this video for The Pathway to Love. And in a heartbeat, he said yes. And it was an incredible experience. He taught me how to do a storyboard. We went on 3 different locations. I don't think he ever thought for a million years this was what he was getting into. But he came in there with passion and vigor and directed, shot, edited, and really at the end of the day helped me create an unbelievable video that I will always treasure in my heart because his heart is in that video. So I'll miss you, Terrence. Thank you for everything that you've brought to all of us. And thank you for letting me share these experiences. Be well, everyone.
Okay, that was our first video. Actually, what I'll do next time, because I know you folks haven't heard these, that being Jean and Trish, I'll mute your channel so if you want to raise your volume, you can actually hear it and it won't echo back.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I forgot to mention. We didn't practice the show, if anybody's wondering. We just kind of jumped into it. We didn't plan it. We just figured, let's just go with it. Anyway, actually, that's almost all the shows were, so it kind of works that way. Both Terrence and I didn't really practice very much. We got together about 10 minutes before the show. As far as the actual show, we practiced during the week as far as what was going to be on the show, but we never really did any practicing. It's just kind of a free-form chat, and that was the whole idea, not to be really stuffy and you know, we were somewhat irreverent sometimes. I was a little more politically incorrect than he was, but the fun thing about that is whenever I got politically incorrect, he would always have that kind of guarded laugh. He'd say, and you know what I'm talking about, Gene, right? So,
Yep.
anyway,
Hey, Rick.
yes.
Just real quick, I just shared with the chat room. So ASTD National will remember Terrence in 2 ways officially. One is they're dedicating a whole page in T&D Magazine in the January 2012 edition
Great.
to Terrence, and they will also remember him at Tech Knowledge next year.
Right. You know, it's funny. I'm speaking at Tech Knowledge at 2 different events, not because I filled out any paperwork
That's
when
right.
when I should have, or responded like I should have. I'm the worst person on paperwork. So Terrence signed me up.
Yeah.
And he goes, here, you're doing these 2 talks. I go,
Right.
okay, thanks. And you know what? I really appreciated that because I forgot all about it. I get busy sometimes and shows and all that just gone. But he's one of those, I know you want to go, so I'm making you go. And you know, you can only appreciate that. So I had to fill out the paperwork afterwards, but he got me in there. And, you know, it's one of those things you always appreciate the kind of person who, I mean, he knew a million people, but he always remembered things about everybody when they needed to be remembered. And I think that's just one of those cool things he did. So and I think, are you going, Gene, to ASTD Tech Knowledge?
I am not scheduled to go. I
Okay.
would like to, given that my job has become an e-learning job.
Okay. Well, it's an end of January, so you have time to get in there.
Thanks for the heads up.
Okay. We're all, I think, Trish, you're going to be there, right?
Yes, I'm supposed to be there.
Okay, cool. So we actually get to meet you in live for the
That,
first time.
that would be nice.
Yay!
It's amazing how many of us know each other virtually. And, we've had this conversation on the shows and just offline and everything that it's amazing the relationships we're all creating through this media. And I think that's one of the things that Terrence was pushing more than anything else. How you can use this as a springboard to not only meeting new people, but establishing really good relationships and respect with each other, not only professionally, but personally. And
Yeah, what I loved, Rick, about how we met is that Terrence through Twitter said, "You need to know Rick." I looked up and saw, how great you were, all the things that you were doing, that we both liked voiceover. And then within a week, we were all together having lunch, and I'm like, this is fantastic.
yeah,
This is what it's all about.
and I remember that luncheon was like, hey, we're just a bunch of friends who got together who've known each other for a
So
long time. That was the weird part.
it was fun.
And it's kind of fun. It's sort of like social media is the perfect icebreaker for people. And you get to know each other there,
Right.
and when you meet in person, it's just kind of natural. It just kind of flows from there.
It felt really lovely to be able to turn it into a live person-to-person meeting so quickly.
Yeah, it was fun, and good lunch.
Yummy.
So we've got another video now. This is from David Kelly. He's kind of one of the guys that I've heard this from Terrence and other people who chronicles things. He chronicles a lot of what's going on in the e-learning world and ASTD and just a lot of different events. And a lot of people respect David. He's a very friendly person, and you'll see kind of how he felt about Terrence. Terrence loved him. He just felt real comfortable around David, and we've known David from this show and Gina Schreck, who most of you know. Gina, actually, Terrence introduced me to Gina, and we're doing a show with Gina too. So you can see the whole thread of how things got around. I kept telling people last week, I go, I don't think I'll meet anybody new now with Terrence gone. He always introduced everybody. I think I met half the people I know through Terrence. So it's sort of an interesting thing. But David Kelly did a real quick video, and it's a nice tribute to how he felt about Terrence. So here goes, and I'll mute your channels now so that you guys can listen without causing the feedback. Here we go.
I think the thing that I'm going to remember most about Terrence was his ability to take risks and to be what I think a lot of learning professionals need to be. He didn't follow the herd in any way, shape, or form. Terrence was a guy who was very passionate about what he did, and he dove into those passions fully. He did not just follow what others were doing. He looked at a tool and said, what's possible here? And he went out and in front of the world took risks and tried things out. Some of the things worked, some of the things didn't, but most importantly what I took away from that was that he tried. And that to me is something that is sorely needed within our profession, and that voice that he provided, that example that he set for a lot of people in that regard is silenced, and that's incredibly sad. More importantly, I mean, as much as the e-learning world has lost a friend, and the learning world in general has lost a friend, the world lost a good man. I mean, Terrence was a wonderful person. I think everyone is probably going to say the same thing about his smile, his ever-present smile. I unfortunately did not know Terrence as well as others. I've only known him for about 2.5 years, starting as many people with an online presence, and I was lucky enough to be able to spend some time with him in person and meet him in person at conferences. And anytime I saw him, that smile was always there. I think we most recently at the DevLearn conference this year, it seemed that every single time I was in the hallway, walking down the hallway from one session to another, there was Terrence in the hallway talking with someone new. And he was a connector. The vast majority of times I would pass by and he would kind of wave me over and say, Dave, come here, I want to introduce you to somebody. That's just who he was. He was always connecting with people, and I wish I had the opportunity to get to know him even better. Like I said, the e-learning world lost a powerful voice, and one that could have done even more than he already did do. He leaves a legacy in the lessons that he shared with people, and I think that's not a lot of people can say that. But more importantly, the world just lost a good man, and he's going to be missed.
Okay, so we have David. I'm sorry about the volume. That was my fault. I didn't have a chance to. I got all the videos late yesterday, and that one I didn't have a chance to normalize the volume. So I don't know if everybody could hear it well, but David's soft spoken, so couldn't. Were you guys able to hear it pretty well?
Yes.
Okay, great. And yeah, it's again, someone who's known him from the shows, from trade shows, from other things, and everybody's got kind of a consistent feel about David. About Terrence. That's something that is pretty unique too, because I think everybody saw the same side of him. How many times have you guys seen Terrence a little angry, a little ticked off?
Would have a smile on his face while he was processing something, but really.
Yeah, I've seen him a couple of times. I know there were about probably 2 or 3 people in this world he didn't like all that much, but it wasn't that bad. It was just sort of like, whatever. And even then, he dropped it pretty quickly. So he didn't fester too long with things he didn't care about. What a lot of people don't realize is he was actually pretty intense. People saw Terrence as kind of a happy guy, just a friendly guy. But there was a lot of focus behind what he wanted to do and how he did it, and I don't think he did things half-mast. He tended to jump into it and jump. So that was, of course, he was airborne when he was in the Army. A lot of people don't realize he was an Army captain, and he did airborne. I think he may have done some special ops kind of training. So this is a guy who can get pretty intense when he needs to, and that's pretty good. And he was also a romantic because. And one example of that, when he got married, he's been married to Maria, I think it's 17 years, if I'm not wrong. I may be off on the date, but it's somewhere around there. They've been married a long time. And the Army was going to relocate him or deploy him to Korea. And that's when he actually quit the Army. He didn't want to leave his wife. And he loved the Army. If anybody wonders, I've had a lot of talks about that with him. He just adored being in the Army. He loved the esprit. What did he love? The esprit de corps. He loved that friendship, the friendships that he developed then. If he had been in the Army today, believe me, every soldier would be doing social media with each other, and it'd be a different world. They'd probably be doing social media with the enemy too, so it'd be probably a different world. But that's kind of something he never quite got to. But I could see that one. But so again, he was a romantic because he did leave something he loved for something he loved more. So that's cool. That's a nice thing. And
I can't help but want to mention that the day that he passed, and maybe we'll see Michelle may have done a video, Winkley. There was a transition about to happen where he was about to become the chapter president as of next year, and it was the holiday party where those announcements get made and where it's kind of made official, the transition. And he was spending the whole year kind of completely engaged and involved and planning for the year, and it's going to be an interesting chance to reflect on what his plans are and what we can move forward with, and how we can connect with his vision in the future. Just amazing.
So you guys had that party or that meeting that night on Wednesday?
It was Thursday.
On
it was that Thursday. So he passed, and a few hours later was going to be the party. What's amazing, and I bet everybody who's listening has connected to it too, is I'm sure people have reached out to their family and their loved ones to say, I love you, I see you, I want to acknowledge you, because it was just so shocking to have somebody you expect always to be there just all of a sudden plucked away.
Yeah.
And yeah, the morning that he died, I called him to thank him for a bunch of things he'd done for me, and there was a whole backlog of them. And so I just called and said, thank you for this, and thank you for this, and thank you for this. So it was just really, and by the way, he called me back immediately and said, I didn't hear your voicemail, but if you need anything, we'll talk later. That was him, right?
Yep.
That was him.
Yep. And that was kind of an apropos phone call at the moment, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Weird. Now, Trish, you went through something similar, and I don't want to drag you through memory lane, but that night when I found out about Trish, I found out about Terrence. I direct messaged Trish. It was already late. It was probably about 11 o'clock her time. But I thought, knowing her, I just wanted to let her know what had happened. I never thought she'd get it till the morning. So immediately, within about 2 minutes, I get a note saying, call me. So I did. We had a very nice, about 45-minute conversation. And I knew Trish was married, but I didn't realize that her husband had passed away 4 years ago, almost at the same age as Terrence, and kind of hit home in more ways than one. For me, I was a little bit in shock. I think I was in double shock that night. And but one thing that I love about Trish is that she has such a positive attitude, and you went through some of this, so you probably know a little bit about what Marie's going through, and what anybody who loses somebody unexpectedly is going through. And even worse so when they're young.
Well, to your point, Rick, and we've had other conversations about other sort of personal things. I think that again is something else with the technology, and I liked what Jean just said. As far as the whole concept of seeing each other, because that's what I believe that we're here to do. Here in general, that's what life is all about: is to connect with each other. And Terrence was certainly representative of that for all of us. But in terms of going through something like this, I think one of the biggest lessons that we can take is, well, two of the biggest lessons. To me, it's not about duration on this planet. It's about, the quote goes, donation. It's about contributing. It's about being present for ourselves and for each other, and again, connecting. And then I think in supporting each other, everybody's got their cross to bear, if you will. And what is it, the wavy gravy quote about we're all bozos on the bus? We all, and I think one of the things that we can do with each other is by having real conversations about things that are happening in our lives. And I mean appropriately so. I mean, I don't mean inappropriately, but I mean appropriately so. But being able to connect with each other, not only over the really good stuff and the surface stuff, but to be able to come together and talk about the real things that are happening in our lives, whether they're good, bad, or otherwise. And then just, realizing that we're all human and we're all in this together. So that's one of my things. Yeah, Brian also died of a heart attack, actually, while I was at ASTD ICE in San Diego 3 years ago, my husband. And that's one of the things that I plan to do, is to reach out to Terrence's wife, to Marie, at some point, and just see what I can do to help.
I think she'd probably love that. Yep.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know if you wanted me to share that or not, but I thought it shows that, the connections are there at so many different levels, and we've all experienced loss in one way or another, and yet we all move on. We continue. And when people say, Terrence is gone, he may be gone physically, but I think in our memories he will live for a long, long time. And that's really, I think, the testament to friendships, to relationships, that you don't lose these people really. You lose maybe their immediate presence, but everything you've done with them will always be there.
Yeah, Rick, I went and saw the show from last week on November 30th, if I'm not correct. Mm-hmm. If I'm correct.
Yes.
And there he was. There was Terrence with the bookshelf behind him,
Yep.
Facilitating the conversation.
Uh-huh.
There he is. If we want to hang out with his presence, boy, do we have a lot of samples of it, thanks to your work together. So Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And that was fun. I mean, he and I, like I said, a lot of people ask me, how did we get together for the show? And I think I blogged about this, but in essence, we had started doing the show. In fact, Trish was the very first person on the show back about a little over 2 years ago, probably about two and a half years ago. But it was an audio show. and audio didn't work well. And then you get two people like Trish and I who can talk forever. And I think we did like a 42-hour interview. So it was
I
just,
think we did. We took over YouTube.
you know. So, and I said, it just wasn't working. We did about 4 of those shows, and I go, it's not working. The format wasn't right for YouTube. And really, you want to connect with the person. You want to see the person. You want to kind of see the smiles, the laughs, and everything else, the mistakes.
Aw.
Yeah, everything we do wrong and right. It's fun. And
Yeah.
so I said, okay, we need to redo the show. And I had met Terrence probably a year before that. And I said, hey, Terrence, you want to do the show? And, you know, he paused for about, I don't know, a microsecond and went, yeah, that sounds fun. So,
Aw.
and that was it. We started the show like about 2 weeks later. So it was just like that. It wasn't one of those things that, hey, come on, let me cajole you, Terrence. Let's do the show. Come on, come on. It was instant. Because to him, that was another way to reach people. And he enjoyed, in fact, a little secret most people don't know. On the first season we kind of mixed and matched. I got half the guests. He got half the guests. He beat me to it on the second season. He had everybody lined up for the whole 20 shows or whatever. I went, wow, how'd you do that? He goes, spend an afternoon. So he just got everyone lined up. And then, so we had a whole mess of guests. And I would kid him. I go, wait a minute, this is your agenda right now. And so we would joke about he was really getting towards the social learning agenda, which is okay. And we had, you know, some really good shows and had a lot of fun on them. And that was kind of how he was. When he wanted to take something by the reins, he just jumped in. And that was good. The good thing about working with him is it wasn't competitive. We had a lot of fun. And I think a lot of that reflects on the show. You know, most of the guests we had were really fun. And yeah, we had a couple that weren't that much fun, but we had fun with the not fun. So which is kind of whatever, however you want to put that one. But he just enjoyed it. You know, I think that was one of the things he really liked doing. And I always told him, I said, you like the show better than I do. He goes, yeah, it's really fun. He liked getting the people together. He liked doing the interviews and again, not scripted. So sometimes we just kind of sat there in silence going, should I say something or should he say something? And eventually one of us would say something, appropriate or not, but we'd say something and it worked out. So that was, you know, part of the fun. And
Well, here's something. That video you were talking about that Julie Orlov did, I got to perform in it as an actor. I have a background in acting, and their Terrence was director of photography, shooting it, editing it, directing it. He was doing everything. And once again, you know, it was like he took on way more than I think he expected and completed it.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is he has a background as an actor. Did you know that?
I did, and he did
And he did some
stage work. He did stage work, I think.
Yeah, he felt so when I saw him, you know, last night and watched some of your video, him with his headset on, you go with your headset on. He liked being a master of ceremonies. I think he really enjoyed that. I think he liked being on camera, as you'll see whenever you see him on camera. That guy's comfortable.
Well, you know, when we did the ASTD seminar I think it was in March, it was a video seminar. He organized it, dragged me into it. At first I went, really? In time? Okay, let's do it. And we had a lot of fun. We had probably had about 35, 40 people in the group. So I said, why don't we break them in 2? After we did the initial seminar part of it, then it was all hands-on. And he went off in one group. And if anybody wants to go to the ASTD Los Angeles chapter website, I think you can find it just by typing it on Google. You'll find right at the beginning of that website on the main page, you'll see the video that his group shot. We had 2 groups. My group shot one video, which was actually the video that you wound up doing with Julie Orloff afterwards, because I had a hardware problem after the fact. The SD card went bad, which is the first time in a decade or more of doing video that a card went bad. We just went, oh. So we lost what we had. We couldn't even recoup it because the card literally went bad, completely bad. His thing went up, and he did a really good job. The guys were doing great. And that was one of the first times he'd really gotten into video to do a whole thing. And Terrence just ran with it. And it was fun. So if you guys want to see the work he did and the fun that they had, go to the ASTD Los Angeles chapter website. Right there on the front, you'll see a little video. It's kind of a testimonial video of why people joined ASTD. And it worked out well. It wound up being a good video for ASTD, but it was done as part of a webinar, a seminar project, which he didn't even know what we were going to do. So that was a lot of fun. And And a testament to him, he did a really good job on the editing and everything else of it. And a lot of people don't know he had gone back to school about a year ago. He was going to Santa Monica City College, taking multimedia classes again. He has a degree in film, and he wanted
He
to go.
did?
He did. He had a degree in film, and he wanted to go back because he said it was too long ago. Things had changed too much. He had really gotten more digital. So he was taking After Effects. He was taking Adobe Premiere. He was doing Sony Vegas Pro. He was having a lot of fun with all the video stuff. And so, he kept himself current, and he was always trying to do. How he found the time to do these things is beyond me. But this is a guy, I think, who worked 24/7 when he wasn't working. So now we have another video from Janice. This one is a little bit longer, but it shows some of the show and one of the moments that she thought was really funny. And we're talking about Terrence's world domination in this one. So here we go. And I'll mute you guys. So let me mute you guys
Thank you.
now so you can hear it as well. So here we go.
Hello, learning colleagues. This is Janice Cook of RidgeviewMedia.com from Prescott, Arizona now, no longer Southern California. Rick Zanotti, thank you so much for this opportunity to share memorial video regarding our dear colleague Terrence Wing, who we lost last week, December 1st. Still in shock. I think the best way I can pay a tribute to Terrence is by recalling eLearnChat episode 4, which was recorded in 2010. And I just love Terrence's spirit in this particular segment of an almost hour-long video where he shared his joy in creating an avatar for free. That was Terrence, always discovering, learning, digging down deep, finding solutions that he could then generously share with all the rest of us. So I hope this works. Let me get this queued up and played for you, and just enjoy watching Terrence in this episode share his good fortune in creating a free avatar and then telling you how to do it.
Creative organizations out there.
There are.
Yeah.
One of the problems with creativity is many times, and Terrence is a good example of proving this wrong, many times there's the illusion of creativity being extremely expensive, and it doesn't have to be. In fact, that kind of brings up what Terrence has been crusading against, which is the destruction of all vendors who charge too much for avatars. So Terrence, talk a little bit to us about how you can make creative e-learning not that expensive.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the character of the e-learning designer, where if you've kind of matured in an environment where you've had a big budget, you've never really been forced to find these corners to cut to make it happen. But for those of us who have worked in environments where you had to make PowerPoint look like Flash, then you find ways of meeting that demand, that client demand, and not using any additional financial resources in order to do it. And I know you got a real kick out of the avatar that I built, where you could spend upwards of $10,000 on an avatar building program, and the avatars they're okay. I mean, when you look at the leader in that category, their avatars, I won't use any names, but their avatars, they're cute, but they're a little awkward looking. They're not as realistic as they could be. So in that particular case, I went into Second Life. I set up a virtual green screen, and I shot an avatar, a Second Life avatar, which are very dynamic looking avatars, and shot that in front of a green screen, imported it into an e-learning course, and now I have an avatar for free instead of spending $10,000 on it. So there's a lot of great tools out there that help us meet the learning goals that we want to meet without breaking our budget or even impacting our budget at all.
And keeping the training pretty interesting at the same time.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I'm so grateful for eLearnChat and all those videos. so that we can go back and see our friend Terrence Wing again. And I know if he were in this room right now, he'd say, Janice, stop crying. I can't stop crying, Terrence. You were taken from us too soon. And I cannot imagine what your family, your friends, and your dear sweet wife Marie are going through right now. So I just want to say to you, Terrence, thank you so much for being very generous with yourself amongst your learning colleagues. And Rick, thank you again for this opportunity to share our memories. I did get to meet Terrence in person in 2010 at the eLearning Guild's eLearnCon. What a great guy. And finally, Marie Wing, I am so sorry for your loss, and cannot imagine what you're going through at this time, but thank you so much for sharing Terrence with us, with his colleagues. You, Marie, have given us a great gift, as well as Terrence giving us a great gift, which is both. The gift is the Terrence Wing. And Terrence, we will never, ever forget you. God bless.
Okay. So we're back. And if you guys can mute the screens again, we're good. Okay, there we go. Anyway, yeah, Janice got a little bit emotional there. That's Janice Cook. She now moved to Arizona last year. She did get to meet Terrence. I was at that same show. We had a good time over there, and and as always, Terrence would try to include her in things, and you know, he's just one of those. Terrence loved Articulate. He always liked the Articulate presenter tool, and I know Gene, you and he did some projects together with that. That's when he was learning how to do green screening.
Yeah, and typical for Terrence, like he sat me down after an ASTD meeting and he said, let's have a conversation. He goes, I want to put together some Articulate videos. And he kind of set together a plan. He goes, and I'd like to do, and it must have been something like, I'd like to put together about 25 videos, our 25 Articulate projects. And I'm like, hey, Terrence, let's try one. And let's see how it goes. And that one took us like 4 months. And we got what we needed out of just that one. It helped us to learn how to do it. It gave us a sample of our work that we could share with clients. But it was just so Terrence to say, let's just do 50 of these things or 20 of these things. So funny.
Yeah, I remember that because during the process he was saying, how do I do this in Vegas? So I'd give him some hints. He goes, got it. And he'd just run away with it. And when I saw the final product, I go, hey, that's pretty good. He did a great job on it. And, it's one of those things he would do probably at, I don't know how late at night, because you could tell he had a million other things to do, but he'd kick it out. And I think he got an honorable mention at the Articulate Awards for that one. So he did a great job. It was interesting. And Jean, you're always a great actress, so that's always fun. Jean, for those who don't know, is a very good public speaker. She's a great actress, funny as all else, and I always enjoy the stuff you do.
Well, what's amazing that I did not have a chance to share with Terrence because it's such a new job is that now I'm blending it all together where I'm doing acting and performing and also casting and creating videos for e-learning.
Oh,
and so it's all about comedy type videos. He would have loved it, and I didn't get a chance to send him some samples. So
yeah, he probably would have. He liked that stuff, and he liked people being successful. One thing we've all talked about in the past is he was one of those guys that not only wanted himself to do well, he wanted everybody else to do well. He believed in people using their labors and efforts to do well, to rise and to enjoy the fruits of the success. So that's one thing that he really did enjoy. And
I once just said I just had to point blank at just say, Terrence, why are you doing all this for me?
Oh, he liked you.
And he would go, I'm a fan.
Yeah, he was.
And I'm wondering how many other people listening and watching, like, he was a fan of mine too. You know?
and that's how he was. And I feel the same way because he would write all sorts of nice things about me, and I was just very appreciative. It's like, a couple of weeks ago, I think we wrote each other recommendations on LinkedIn. We had Donna Gilliland on the show, and she was telling about how we should all write recommendations. So he immediately called me up and says, "Come on, what are you waiting for? All right, let's do it." So we wrote each other recommendations, and as always, he's extremely gracious. So it's one of those things that it was a pleasure knowing Terrence, and it's one of those rare things. And I don't know if anybody here has known him more than 5 or 6 years. I think I knew him about 2 years. I think you've probably known him about 3, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we served on the board together for 2 years, and this year that makes 3 years, so maybe 4 years.
Four
I'm
years,
5.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
great. And Trish, I think you've known about 3 years, maybe a little more.
No, just a couple. Well, yeah, close to 3 years, I guess. Back in
Yeah.
2009, May
But
of 2009.
but one thing I've noticed is all of us feel like we've known him for a long time.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was a natural friendship, and that's the thing that's really nice. There aren't that many people we meet in this world that you just immediately oscillate towards, and you go, "Hey, this is a good." We resonate, and and that's nice. And he had a good habit of introducing us to people that also resonated with each other. When I first met Jean, I felt like, "Hey, I know Jean. Jean's cool. I've known her for a long time." It's just,
Exactly.
we
You know
talked on
what?
the phone first, and it just felt like a real natural. Hey, how have you been? And same with Trish. I mean, Trish and I talked 3 hours on our first conversation. That was before the interview.
You know
So-
what? I
Hey,
just
Rick.
remember the
So-
moment. I just finally remembered the moment where I became aware of Terrence. We were at an ASTD meeting, and I think it was before the meeting. And he just mentioned he was on a flight. He was on a flight to Hawaii and was in good spirits. And somebody near him was not getting along with their child, and he was just noticing how it could go differently. And he fell into conversation with those two and imparted some wisdom, and it all went much more smooth. I just remembered, I was like, what an interesting man. What an interesting man, because he just saw it as all a teaching opportunity.
Yeah.
On this flight to Hawaii. And I was like, who is that guy? I want to know that guy. Now I remember.
Yeah.
That was the moment.
Interesting. Interesting. Now we have another video. This is going to be our last video until we get to our final video, our penultimate video. This is Michelle Winkley. She was, I think last year, she was the president of the LA chapter for ASTD. Or is it this year?
Yeah, Michelle's the current president.
Current
Terrence
president.
was going to take over. Hey, Rick, I'm so sorry. I've got to drop off.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Thanks to Terrence. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Jean.
Oh, no problem.
That's it.
So anyway, so here we are. I'm going to play this one video. So I'm going to mute your channel again. And
Thanks.
by the way, that was very nice of Trish to spend her time with us. I know she's extremely busy. It's this time of year. We're all crunching right now and trying to finish up our years and do all the last minute work that needs to be done. So we really appreciate her time coming today. Anyway, this is Michelle Winkley. She's really sweet. She is the current president of the LA chapter, and her and I've been talking a lot and coordinating. I think I've kind of hit the social media side regarding Terrence, and she hit all the local people. And so we've gotten the word out, and she's just done a wonderful job. And here she is.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Winkley, and I knew Terrence through ASTD Los Angeles. In late 2009, Terrence attended one of our board meetings. I think he attended just to meet all of us and get to know us, but we realized how much value he could bring to the board, and we put him to work right away. When I moved out of the director of workshop role, he moved into that role and added more value than I ever did. When I moved out of the president-elect role into the president role, I asked Terrence to be my president-elect. He originally turned me down, but I got him to see it my way. Over the next year, Terrence and I would work very closely together, and I had always enjoyed working with Terrence, but what I didn't realize is that we would become such good friends. Terrence also took it upon himself to act as my business manager. I used to tease him about it and ask him how much he would charge me to be my business manager. He would just look at me and give me that little smile and that little chuckle that he did all the time and not say anything else. I'd always wanted to repay the kindness that he had shown me, and probably many others, but I never quite found the right way. I tried to pick up the check at dinner a couple of times, but that didn't work so well either. In a normal week, Terrence and I would talk 2 to 3 times. It would be about ASTD LA stuff, about business, and about anything else. This week there's been quite a void in my life. Terrence, my love goes to you and your family.
Okay, and that was Michelle Winkley. And Jean, can you mute your...
Yes.
There we go.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's your first time on. This is normal. We all go through this. So again, and there's a lot of people who probably wanted. I did get a lot of notes from people saying that they wanted to do a video, but they couldn't bring themselves to do it. Either they were emotional or for whatever reason they weren't able to get to video equipment or whatever. But really thank all of you who did submit videos, and more so, we got a ton of notes. I was actually pretty shocked at the amount of notes I got on Friday after we did the initial tweets to people, let people know what had happened. It was an enormous amount. And for that, I really thank everybody for not only thinking of Terrence, and I appreciate all the comments. I think I've been getting notes every day of how are you? I'm okay. I think we're all okay. We continue moving on. And in fact, the show is continuing next week. We have Tiagi on, or Tiagi.
Tiagi?
Tiagi is
Wow.
coming on.
Wow.
So we'll have him on. Terrence loved him. I never met him. I had a chance to go to dinner with him and Terrence and wives, and I could not make it that day. And so it was one of those, unfortunately, it wasn't too far from where we lived either. I think it was in Moore Park. So we didn't have a chance to make it that day, but I'm looking forward to meeting him. Terrence just loved the guy. From what I've heard, a lot of people really just like him. And I think he is... What does he call? He practices happiness. I think that's what it is, something like that. But anyway, he'll be on the show. We will have a co-host, but I have no idea who the co-host will be yet. So we'll establish that. We'll definitely have a guest co-host, and then I think we have one more show for this year, and then we're going to break till next year, and then we'll start over again. And we thought about, do we just keep the show going? Do we not keep it going? This is one of Terrence's favorite things, so we're just going to keep it going. I think in his memory, I think he'd enjoy it, and we'll just continue on with it. And so let's see. I don't have access to the chat room right now. There's just so much I can look at while we're doing the show. So if you are in the chat room, and sorry if we didn't get to you or any comments, but we do appreciate you guys being here always. And Jean, do you have any parting comments or anything before? Because we're going to end with...
Sure, we'll end with the flute.
We'll end with the flute, and
Sure.
And then we'll just call it a show. And if you can stay on for just a moment afterwards, when we finish, that will still be live. We'll finish a recording, but we'll be live, and then we'll wrap up with everybody in the chat room. And I'm sorry we're running late today, but I guess everybody had a lot to talk about, and not that often that we lose a good friend. So... Jean, any kind of closing memories, anything you want to talk about?
Simply that I see here that there's an opportunity for me to participate more in the online community. It didn't come as naturally to me as it did to Terrence, clearly. And so I just see, as I'm looking at the chat room, all this opportunity to connect with some amazing people. So I thank you and thank Terrence for that reminder. And wishing you all a beautiful holiday as we reflect on the passing of our friend and colleague. Bye-bye, everybody.
That's great. Bye, everyone. We're going to end with Leva Wijmeis from Belgium. She was an ardent fan of the show. She's a good friend of all of us. And I've known Leva now for quite a few years. And it hasn't been that long. It's been probably a little over 2 years. But in those 2 years, she's been through a lot. And we've talked a lot, and Terrence was there, and she loved the show and enjoyed what we did. So she did a little talk, and she played a little bit of music for us. So here we go. And then with that, we will end the show, and then we'll do a real quick wrap-up live for the audience, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
I was presented to Terrence by Rick about 1 year ago, virtually, of course, when they started their eLearnChat project. They invited me to be their guest, and I was so shy and so nervous, but both they succeeded at calming me down. Weekly, I enjoyed chatting with Terrence and other attendees in the chat room about the subject, but also, of course, about social media. 1 month ago at Deflin, I met Terrence really for the first time. At that moment, I couldn't suspect that his first real hug would also be the last one. Thanks, Terrence. Words are now very difficult, so I took my flute. Vaarwel, vriend.